working for me. I was taking Joe serious, but it's when the white man, Ian, started saying, "You don't love him. You sit there on your phone." I started dying laughing. I said, if this was Corey, I would listen to Corey. You know how much chances we took?
Joe Budden confronts Flip about his awful on-air conduct and his diminished presence. In contrast to how they often begin the show with meaningless babble about their weekend, the most recent episode was a highly marketed departure. Rather, they started right away, and Flip disclosed that Joe Budden had instructed him to enter. Here's the problem, though. Joe Budden's manager, Ian Schwartzman, would say, "I want to be there." And there he was. Let's now discuss what this whole incident was and how it transpired, and then analyze the implications of this whole situation that began behind the scenes and was captured on camera. As previously mentioned, it's reported that Ian insisted on attending a meeting that Joe Budden called Flip in for. Joe would say, "I'm leading with love towards Flip," to start the conversation. However, as soon as Flip shows up and the conversation begins, Ian interrupts with his criticism, and Flip simply responds, "Hey man, get to the point. I'd like to know what you're talking about." At that point, Ian would actually declare, "Okay, you don't love him," bringing up how Flip is exploiting him and how Joe is supporting him, saying things like, "Hey, you're always on the phone. I'll be observing the replay. You just don't think this is serious. On you, we took risks." That just proves that Ian Schwartzman is keeping an eye on Flip while he watches the recording. As this discussion unfolds in front of the crowd, it's interesting to note that Parks consistently supports Ian.
That sounds respectful.
He is communicating that, "Yo, Flip, you are bugging out with his interruptions." And I found that to be really interesting. Additionally, Parks consistently adopts this position during conversations, which has some bearing on how seriously people regard the business. He would treat Melissa Ford in the same manner. He would treat Imani in the same manner. Recall how Parks would intervene and remark, "That's Unprofessional, dog, that's whack," when Imani took a photo with Rod Wave.
Frowned upon. As a studio guy, like, you can't be like, just part of the code that I was brought up in. No, you don't take pictures of them that come in the studio or any studio or anywhere where they're not posing or expecting to be taken.
Thus, keep an eye on Parks at all times. When Parks, Joe, and Ian agree, you can be sure that they are discussing a serious matter and confiding in one another. Flip then says something extremely bizarre. He claims that he laughed at Ian because he couldn't take him seriously, but that if Corey had made the criticism, he would have accepted it. I would learn a lot from this. It would disclose, among other things, that Flip has essentially always done this. He doesn't respect Ian, so he gets around him. The whole TMZ thing, you know. "Don't go on TMZ," Joe advised him. "Don't go on TMZ," Ian told Flip. Rather, he would give Joe a call. Ian once said to Flip, "Yo, we're suspending you because you almost got into a fight with Joe." What action did Flip take? He would call Joe since he didn't like what Ian had said. He doesn't respect Ian then. I mean, it's very clear. Ian is aware of this, which is likely the reason he lost it. He knows he can't truly communicate with Flip unless he becomes enraged. But that only made Flip laugh at him. Mark Lamont Hill then intervenes to start asking some pointed questions while they're discussing this entire topic on the program. He questioned Flip whether Joe had fairly evaluated his performance and whether he agreed with his assessment.
Breaking down your performance, whatever it was. Yes. Did you feel like he was accurate?
"Yes," says Flip. Mark then persuades Flip to acknowledge that Ian was genuinely angry when Flip began making fun of him.
Because you said you laughed. Did that anger him more?
It did rile him up.
Is it wise for Flip to make fun of someone who works for the network? According to what I hear, Ian has a significant voice, but Joe Budden has the final say. And when I say final say, I mean the ability to fire someone. For example, I don't think that can occur unless Joe approves of someone leaving the show. Perhaps for this reason, Flip takes Joe a little more seriously. I'm not sure. Mark then begins making connections, inquiring as to whether this discussion is related to Flip's new schedule.
Conversation in your new schedule? Yeah. What's the relationship?
Like you just said last question.
Well, he didn't answer. What? He did answer you. Okay.
Flip is being phased out, as everyone is aware. He used to appear on the podcast on both Wednesdays and Saturdays. However, nowadays he just appears on the Wednesday program. However, Joe recognizes that Mark is going to receive the desired response. Joe Budden intervenes and attempts to get Mark to back off. And Mark backs off because, in my opinion, he enjoys probing, but he pretty much chills when Joe Budden tells him to. Nevertheless, Flip would respond to the query by saying, "Hey, this new schedule is by choice. It's me who wants to accomplish this." And everyone in the pod bursts out laughing. This argument didn't end there, though, because Mark Lamont Hill would later make fun of Flip by stating things like, "You should get 50% of something because you're only at the show 50% of the time." And additionally acknowledging that Flip is attempting to portray this or spin it as something positive.
You're working hard. You're working smarter.
Hey,
Don't listen to what they're telling you.
Hey, Mark, listen
You're
to
getting
me.
twice.
Mark.
Yeah.
Thus, significant changes are taking place, as we can all see. But do these stories really stem from the realities of a podcaster who is losing his footing on the show? Or is this content over everything? And I understand what you guys are saying before anyone types it in the comments. Flip was scheduled to take a month's vacation from the program. I refuse to buy it. None of the cast members will likely take a month off, in my opinion. They often take a few weeks off at most, but a month off just doesn't seem plausible. That seems like something they're just tossing around. We also need to consider the past. Do you recall how they would let Flip attend the show even though he was bugging out? That kind of activity, nevertheless, never really ended. He would get upset with Melissa Ford as they went along, but then he would get upset with someone because he most likely went too far with Mona.
See, I read that face good.
I make it. No. Cry.
I'm so nice to
Nah, I'm a queen. Because Mark ain't gonna always be there. Let's move on.
Mark got it down. Mark was trying to walk away.
A lot of wreck.
This might have been the circumstance that begged Joe Budden to take a seat, turn over, and safeguard his newly acquired asset. And it's not just because Joe Budden believes she's fantastic. Additionally, Melissa Ford's tenure on the show was greatly influenced by Flip. He might be the reason he had to bid her farewell. Therefore, he cannot be the cause of Mona's absence from the show. Additionally, there have been other instances of Flip being silent, shutting down, and sandbagging interviews. Recall that Bryson Tiller seemed to be acting completely insane during the interview. I believe Flip and Joe Budden were on the verge of fighting on that particular day. Then there was Lola Brooke, the don't play with it girl. Because he was unable to talk and felt stifled, he was acting out and bugging out. Thus, Flip has acted in a way that is harmful to the program. And I think he's being urged to sit down and relax instead of using his leverage, but he's framing it as a means of expanding his brand. Could this be satisfied with everything now? Not in my opinion. I believe that after the toothpaste comes out of the tube, they're allowing things to appear a specific way. They are trying to describe and observe the events. I believe this will have far-reaching effects, but the wild card in all of this is that a new show and possibly a new idea are on the horizon, and it won't be long before we learn the specifics of that. Is this a new podcast? Is this IP brand new? Will it be the same as what they do on the other 2 days of the week? Or would it be something quite different, allowing Flip to resume working 2 days a week? I'm not sure. However, I am aware of what would happen if Mona began working on Wednesdays as well. Will Joe Budden be sensitive enough to suggest that Flip should visit every other Wednesday rather than on Wednesdays? At that point, we'll know that the last stages of Flip on the program have arrived. Additionally, what if Flip bugs out once more? I think there's very little room for error. Therefore, even if this is a planned notion, Flip can only play with so much real estate at this time, and his next poor decision may be his last. But please share your thoughts with me. The Joe Budden podcast's biggest criticism, in my opinion, is that it begins with a lot of random chat about their weekend, and you can tell Joe Budden is simply trying to get everyone excited. For this reason, I actually liked that it got right to the point. But at least it led to the first point when they began with this contract stuff, and in my opinion, it made everything go easily. Another consequence of all of this is that the viewers might miss Flip if he makes fewer appearances on the show. Perhaps Joe is using the same tactic here as well. Okay everyone, for now, that's my video.